wanted to start my remarks by saying this clearly and plainly, that people who are fleeing war, famine, persecution and life-threatening situations are fully deserving of our compassion and support. And I fear sometimes when we have these debates, it sounds as if we've lost our humanity, our empathy and our compassion. And despite what is commonly stated by far-right figures on social media and parroted by the media and some political figures, many of those we are currently discussing are people who are fleeing awful situations that many of us can only begin to imagine. And many of their stories are lost in this debate and are overshadowed by claims that they are trying to somehow cheat the system. But this is simply not true. And we know this to be the case because almost half of the applications for asylum submitted in 2024 were accepted after the initial application. Of the other half, over 50% of them were granted after appeal. So the overwhelming majority of those seeking asylum in the UK have a legitimate claim within the law to be here. And for clarification, that means they are not illegal. The UK has a duty under international law to accept and process asylum claims. We receive far more than other far less than other European countries, which someone has the point that someone else has already made today. And as a signatory of the 1951 UN Refugee Convention, we must comply with that obligation. And I'm sure there are those that would want to withdraw us from that convention, and I hope the day never comes where those people have the power to do so. We also have an obligation under our own legislation, under the Immigration and Asylum Act of 1999, to house those seeking asylum whilst they await the outcome of their application. And during this time, asylum seekers are not allowed to work. Many of them would want to. Many of them have overcome traumas as travel to the UK because they want to make a better life for themselves and for their families, but it's our own laws that prevent them from doing so. According to Refugee Action, at the end of 2024, 124,802 people were waiting for an initial asylum decision, with 73,866 waiting for over 6 months. This is unnecessary, and whilst we have sped this up slightly under the new government, we have to recognise that there are some countries to which we are never going to send people back to at the moment. So why would we not make a faster claim in that respect? It doesn't make sense making them wait, because while they wait, they are unable to work, meaning that the economy is missing out on hundreds of millions every year that they could do from tax and national insurance contributions. And if we really wanted to reduce the cost of housing and financial support for those seeking asylum, we could quite simply give them the right to work and adequately staff the Home Office to handle these claims. We could give local authorities all of those millions that we're currently sending to people in private companies to build and buy social housing, which I was really pleased to hear my honourable friend mention in his opening today. These are simple solutions that we could implement and would be much easier to implement than the current situation that we have. But I fear that those are not chosen because it fits this narrative better that has become so popular in our current discourse, to say that we're going to ban people from claiming asylum if they came here through so-called illegal means, despite the fact that there are no safe and legal routes for them to do so. And we're going to house people in far worse conditions than they're already being housed, all while private companies profit from this. And, and I think that's the wrong narrative. We need to make a positive case for this and actually just be clear that it's the system that is the issue, not the people. And I just want to address the deeply misleading notion that asylum seekers are staying in luxury accommodation, which I've been very pleased to hear colleagues address today already, in so-called 5-star hotels and being given a top-tier service. This couldn't be further from the truth. I've visited various different types of accommodation across the country and in London, housing asylum seekers. There's nothing luxurious about it. Cramped rooms with one family to a single room, typically not well kept, and a standard below what anyone would deem acceptable. And many have had infestations of bed bugs, cockroaches and other vermin. Nor this idea that asylum seekers are being given hundreds of pounds each a week to help pay for the luxury lifestyle some would like us to have believed that they are currently living. In a family sense, and I'm talking about a vulnerable family seeking asylum, they're just giving a measly £5.84 to live on per day. That is for one family. This is not a large amount. That's just over £40 a week, hardly a luxury lifestyle. And finally, I want to end on this point. The very notion that those who are seeking asylum and refugees make up a significant proportion of people coming to the UK is false. In fact, the opposite of true. Too often, those on other visas are conflated with those seeking asylum just to help create this very negative narrative. So when we are having these discussions, it would be really helpful for others to highlight that we are talking about a very, very small proportion of people in the UK's overall immigration figures, and that this crisis is very much fabricated, and that actually we have that legal and moral duty, and we should be meeting it instead of fueling this really false narrative even more. Thank you.